Morning, everyone. I used to watch the Colbert Report and the Daily Show with Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert back when they were funny, back when they were very, very poignant, satirical, political commentators, and I thought I loved those formats and those shows. And now it seems comedians have gone around the corner, and I stopped paying attention to those shows because everybody just trashes Trump for half an hour, and it's not funny. It's not fun to watch. It's not funny. So I stopped watching it. And I thought that caliber of political commentary or even the interviews, etc., didn't exist anymore. And then I came across this tweet. Somebody on my tweet thread retweeted this, and I hadn't seen this yet. And usually I've seen things like this, but I hadn't seen this. And well, I've got an interesting opinion piece to read you about this right after this, but see if you can see the deer in headlights look that's referenced by the next piece I read you's author. In this little clip I'm going to show you. It's really interesting. Here we go.
Finish this sentence. Canada will not sell any more weapons to Saudi Arabia, period. I'm sorry, I messed that one up. Canada will not sell any more weapons to Saudi Arabia, please.
That's a good statement.
You said 9 months ago you guys would be examining it, and it takes about 3 months to study for the LSAT, so that's a pretty good examination time. You could announce it right here, right now. We're canceling the deal.
We got it right here, wild on camera. We take our legal responsibilities and the breaking of contracts very seriously in this country.
I'm telling you, they watch the show. Like, they really watch the show.
I don't think they do. I'm sure they're keeping an eye on you.
They're keeping an eye on him, right? So while Canadian media can't unabashedly make fun of the Prime Minister in Canada, American media can, it appears. And here's the star opinion piece I was just teasing. It says, Hassan Minhaj didn't interview Justin Trudeau, he took him to the woodshed. And, well, here we go. When Justin Trudeau granted an interview to an American comedian, he probably expected a half hour of laughs, love, free publicity, and a break from scandal. Instead, he was batted around like a cheap wiffle ball. When I was a kid, this one time we were driving through Pennsylvania late at night when a fawn suddenly appeared in the headlights of our station wagon. Since my father maddeningly drove under the speed limit and there was no traffic on the interstate, he was able to brake without incident, but that adorable creature just stood there for a good 30 seconds, motionless, unsure of what to do next. It seemed so helpless and lost in the chaos. I was reminded of it while watching Netflix Patriot Act with Hassan Minhaj on Sunday. Trudeau might as well buy himself a pair of antlers and a bushy tail before Halloween, just based on the moments of awkward silence and the reaction shots in which he looked absolutely paralyzed with fear. He was that fawn. The episode title, The Two Sides of Canada, sounded ominous even before you clicked play. Two sides? You mean like Ted Bundy or Frankenstein? Whenever you hear two sides, that's never good. Two sides telegraphs illusion and deceit. Two sides suggests what you think you know about someone is at best incomplete. Two sides is a reputational kiss of death. And this weekend, Netflix puckered up and planted a wet one on Trudeau. And I'm going to scroll down. There's a description of a game where Trudeau has to name the world leader from an image. And the comparison that the author makes is basically like you would expect an NHL coach to be able to pick out pictures of NHL coaches versus like some random dude. And Trudeau fails, of course. But regardless, I'm just going to skip down to here. As it turns out, the name game was the least of it. What Trudeau's inner circle probably didn't realize when it was through with this interview and global exposure via Netflix was a great idea was that much of the really damning material would come from taped segments. In between clips of Minhaj's sit-down with Trudeau, the comedian also blitzed his in-studio audience with facts, observations, and timelines that portrayed Trudeau as a scandal-ridden leader who speaks out of both sides of his mouth. The show went after Trudeau over the SNC-Lavalin scandal. It raised the issue of ethics violations. It more or less called Trudeau a fraud on the environment. It condemned him over Canada's arms sales to Saudi Arabia, which we just watched. Scroll down a little bit more. But what should be most alarming to Trudeau and his team is that he has now lost America's titanium pop culture machine. Since becoming Prime Minister, Trudeau has been called everything from the internet's boyfriend to a progressive messiah to all that is right in the world. He's popped up on magazine covers with throws such as the new suave Canadian dude, GQ, and why can't he be our president, Rolling Stone. To Americans and by extension most of the world, Trudeau could do no wrong. He represented everything other nations yearned to be. NDP. Hassan Minhaj didn't interview Trudeau. He took him to the woodshed. Years from now, when Trudeau is on his deathbed, no clips from this interview will make the highlight reel of his life. This was a PR disaster, pure and simple. Without explicitly using the words, the show portrayed Trudeau as a fraud. It called out the hypocrisy and incompetence. I'm going to scroll down. You know what happened this weekend? Justin Trudeau lost America forever. And holding on to Canada for the election this fall just became much harder. Interesting, right? And on the heels of that, I came across this tweet yesterday. It was tweeted out. It was a Globe and Mail article that says, "Hey, debates Canada and Monk debates. This poll states that 17% of Canadians are open to supporting Mr. Maxime Bernier, and you still refuse to send him an invitation. Shame." And I wanted to show you the poll. Well, I don't have the Nanos poll. I couldn't find it. I did go to the Nanos site, but I couldn't find it. But here's Globe and Mail reporting. Poll finds 17% of Canadians are open to supporting Maxime Bernier-led party. 17% of Canadians say they're open to voting for a new Conservative party led by Maxime Bernier, according to a Nanos research survey conducted for the Globe and Mail. The poll also found that 70% would not consider supporting Mr. Bernier's party, while 12% were unsure. I scroll down. Pollster Nick Nanos said the results show the party led by Mr. Bernier is unlikely to be a contender for power. However, he said the poll numbers suggest that a strong campaign could be enough to gain official party status, which requires 12 seats in the 338 House of Commons. He said Mr. Bernier could also draw support away from other parties if he's viewed as a protest option. I scroll down again. The poll of 1,000 Canadian adults was conducted between August 25th and August 27th as part of an omnibus survey. Participants were recruited via random calls to cell phones and landlines, and the survey was then administered online. The results are weighted by age, gender, and geography in order to produce a representative sample. The margin of error for a random survey of 1,000 Canadians is plus or minus 3.1 percentage points, 19 times out of 20. So just be aware. Survey respondents were also asked if they agree or disagree with Mr. Bernier's statement that the Conservative Party is too intellectually and morally corrupt to be reformed. I thought this was interesting. They did 31% in words, and then the rest of the percentages were all in numbers. So 31% disagree, 15% say they somewhat disagree, so under 50% disagree, and then 43% agree, and a further 12% are unsure. So it's like 38% disagree, 43% agree, and 12% don't care or don't have an opinion. So I find that interesting. First, this is the first Nanos poll that I've seen Bernier that high, and in a weighted poll, I mean that's interesting. The writ hasn't dropped yet, as far as I'm aware at this point this morning, and because the writ can drop anytime between now and September 15th. The writ could have dropped on the 1st to the 15th of September for the October 21st election date. So that's interesting, right? Really interesting. And the final story for this morning, we are watching the real-time death of the NDP. Really, this is happening in real time right now. This is Dave Aiken, who's a global news reporter, and he's tweeting at 2:04 p.m. yesterday, September 3rd. Mass defection today in New Brunswick. 1 federal NDP executive and 14 former provincial NDP candidates abandoned the Orange team and endorsed the federal Green Party. Why? The Jagmeet Singh inattention to NB combined with Elizabeth May's attention. And there's more to that story, but it's an interesting implosion. Basically, the NDP are focusing on Ontario and BC to maintain seats, etc. And I mean, BC is where they have their seats, but they don't have any money, right? They don't have enough money for a national campaign, so they have to focus on specific provinces, and the Atlantic provinces are upset by that. So that's interesting, isn't it? Isn't it? I mean, all of these moves, and really the writ hasn't dropped, but the pot is boiling. We're ready to go. Drop the pasta. Let's start cooking. Okay, that's a weird analogy. I was making sidekicks for dinner yesterday, so that's where that came from. All right. Well, thank you for watching and putting up with my weird pasta analogies. And have a wonderful day. And check out thepeoplespartyofcanada.ca.